Life is about movement. And in order to move, you have to make sure that when it comes to living your life, meaning living your life with purpose, living authentically from your core, from your consciousness, and creating the things that you desire, it is imperative that you do these things. And by the end of this, I'm going to show you exactly how you create a exercise or tool that would actually encompass all of these things in one. All right. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we actually get moving forward in life in a way that is practical, in a way that is in alignment with your desire, with your purpose, with who you truly are, because that's what this spiritual journey is about. We are oftentimes going through life in a survival mode where we are just simply living day to day, sometimes check to check, right? Relationship to relationship, interaction to interaction. I mean, you can go down the list of all the things and elements of life that we just simply live moment to moment in, not being mindful about the moment, but actually being distracted about being in the moment. Because we are often so distracted that we cannot even get a clear idea as to who you are, what it is you want to do in your life, and many times what your purpose is. So it's important to identify and take time out to be still with yourself in order to actually have a moment or a series of moments every day to actually come to grips or come into the realization of these things. So now it's important to think about if you are to become aligned with who you are, with your desires, with your purpose, it's important that you move through life intentionally. And so the first thing to do is to recognize where you show up and how you even self-sabotage your development, how you prevent yourself from actually being yourself. And how you do that is simply by practicing self-awareness and identifying these patterns and identifying where you are in action, where your habits lay, where your patterns are that don't align with really what you truly desire. So, first thing is you have to ask yourself, what is it that I desire? What is it that I want to do with my life? What is it that I want to do in this moment of my life? Right? You have to think about what excites you, what you're passionate about, what actually creates a sense of drive and inspiration. Then you have to ask yourself, well, what am I doing that either aligns with that or does not align with that? You see, so you have to really sit and take an honest look at yourself. Put a figurative mirror in front of you and actually look at yourself and look at how you're showing up in your life. Because the things that you desire are not going to miraculously just appear, right? You have to make them appear. You have to consciously put in the intention, the action for it to happen, for it to materialize. So this is about taking true ownership of yourself, accepting yourself, loving yourself, but also acknowledging that when you own the movement, you own the actions of that which you desire, then it has to happen, right? It has to materialize. So the first thing you want to do is take ownership by practicing self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. It is the beginning of everything because self-awareness is the pinpoint, right? The pin in you acknowledging where you are right now and then acknowledging what it is that you want. Because once you do that, everything else is just simply a domino effect. Everything else is just a, result of acknowledging that first. If you can't acknowledge that first, then materializing what you want, living a happy and fulfilled life is just simply not going to happen unless you first identify where you are in this moment. So then once you identify where you are in this moment, you have to acknowledge and think about the patterns, right? The patterns that no longer work, the unproductive patterns, the quote unquote old patterns, right? And you have to avoid those patterns. Now, in spirituality, we don't really want to focus on the avoidance of things that we don't want because we don't want to focus on that which we don't want, right? We want to be mindful and focus on what it is you do want. But for the intention of really being clear, you want to be able to identify these old patterns. You want to be clear about these old patterns. When you're clear about them, then you want to avoid these patterns. But you avoid these patterns by focusing on its opposite, which are things that you do want and creating patterns that will align yourself with those desires. You see, so self awareness, recognizing who you are, what it is that you want. And it doesn't have to be one of these like, oh, in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is what I want. No, let's just focus on this month, right? Let's just focus on the next 30 days. What is it that you want? And then you have to identify the patterns that don't align with what you want. Then you have to say, okay, what patterns would actually align better with that I do want, right? So you have to think about that. What pattern do you think align with what you want? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be better than the patterns that you were living in and doing before. You see, so the whole journey is about fine tuning and getting better and better as you go. So let's just focus on these next 30 days. All right. What do you want? Avoiding the patterns that don't align with what you want by focusing on the things that you do want and creating new patterns and better patterns. All right. Then you want to focus on practicing mindfulness with understanding that, okay, every single day I have to be clear as to my actions and what I'm doing. Every single moment you have to be intentional and just simply think through what you're doing. And I know at first it can seem like work, but think about it. If you are not living your life being mindful, meaning that you're thinking about your actions, what you are about to do, what you're going to do, what you did, and thinking about how it aligns with your desires, how it aligns with, maybe getting yourself into trouble, not getting yourself into trouble, making people feel good, making people feel bad. Like when you start thinking about who you're being, how you're acting, how you're moving through the world, and the results that will create, then it allows you to really kind of create the ability to see into the future, right? Because you can correlate actions with results. So if you are acting in a way that is negative, that is, you have an attitude, you are, short tempered, then you can see a correlation between how that is going to affect your reality. Like what is that going to result in? So you have to be mindful about looking at and thinking about your current state of being, your actions, your thoughts, and then saying to yourself, okay, if I'm in this space, what is that going to result in for me? Right? What kind of results, what kind of things am I going to materialize by way of my vibration, my frequency? What am I sending out? Because whatever I'm sending out is going to be reciprocated back to me. So you are now being mindful and responsible about your state of being. This doesn't mean that you avoid negative emotions, right? It doesn't mean that you avoid feeling sad, feeling a little frustrated, feeling annoyed. Like you acknowledge those feelings, but remember, you are not those feelings. So you simply acknowledge them and you use them as means of taking you to the next side of that experience, which is often the high vibration, emotions or thoughts. Remember, all of these experiences are on a spectrum. So if you're having negative emotions, feelings, thoughts, recognize that that's just simply the extreme side of the spectrum of your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts, meaning that you can easily simply just go into the other side of that spectrum. When you recognize that the opposite of bad is good, and that they are the exact same side or they are the same coin, right? They are just two sides of the same coin. Then you understand, wait a minute, okay, so if this state of where I'm at now is just the contrast of the other side or a spectrum, then you realize you just simply have to just move the gauge right over a little bit. You just simply have to think about things that maybe make you feel better, right? But you realize that they are connected. They are not just complete, totally different opposite things that have nothing to do with each other. They are in fact the same essence. You're just leaning on one side of it versus the other. And you can just simply, by thinking about that, it helps you to move the gauge over to the side that you wish to experience and feel. Okay. So you have to understand being mindful is a powerful tool. And it is something that takes practice because a lot of times, again, we are distracted. We are, you know, so busy in this survival mode rather than being in a state of thriving, right? Which is a mindful state of being. When you are surviving, you are distracted by the bills. You are distracted by what you don't have and the lack thereof. That is a trap, right? So you want to be mindful that if you acknowledge that this trap is simply a state of mind, it isn't true, it isn't your true essence, your true reality, then you get to step away from that and you get to move from this spectrum of the negative frequency, the lower vibration, to a higher vibration. Okay. Meditation is another tool that you can use to actually do that. Meditation will put you in a space of neutrality where you are neutral, where you are in between, right? And you are an observer rather than the one having the experience. That is where true power comes in when you think about meditation. So even if you're meditating a minute a day, right? 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, it will help to take you from a space of feeling like you have to identify with, the bad or the good, because sometimes identifying with the good so much can be a traumatic thing when the good is not happening at the moment or you're not feeling good at the moment. You see, a lot of times when people are on this spiritual journey, they feel a sense of a higher frequency, a higher vibration of thinking. And so they feel like, okay, life is beautiful because it is, but they are so attached to that good feeling when they don't feel bad. They feel like something's wrong with them. They feel like they should know better than to actually experience, say, sadness, say, low grade depression or anxiety, even, or even frustration or anger. You see? So you have to be mindful that either side of the spectrum can be kind of dangerous if you are identifying with that side of the spectrum that you're on. But with meditation, you learn to actually feel the beauty, the peace of being neutral, of being in the space where you are not either identifying with the good nor the bad. And that is where the freedom happens. That is where the space of tranquility and bliss even exists because you are simply you. You are being rather than being sad, rather than being angry, rather than being frustrated, rather than feeling anxious, rather than feeling happy or excited. You are just simply being. You see, so meditation is that tool that allows you to be. And then when you are practicing meditation, you are in a space of being at peace with self. Then you can use that peace to move forward in life in, your ability to self-assess and practice, being mindful about who you are, basically what you want to do in life, right? What resonates with you and then taking that to understanding how to create new patterns that align with who you are, right? That align with what you want to do, what you're passionate about in life. So these things connect. That's why I want you to be mindful about the connection of all these things. They don't live in isolation, right? One definitely has something to do with the other. So be mindful about all that as well. As you are on this journey, please practice self-compassion, practice being kind to yourself, treat yourself like your best friend because that is who you are. You are your own best friend. And just like any good friend, you want to be kind, you want to be generous, you want to be patient, you want to be understanding. And this all ultimately leads into self-mastery. Okay, this all eventually leads into the self-realization, the personal mastery over understanding who you are, your purpose, and what it is you're here to do, which ultimately leads to your fulfillment. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you one thing that I practice that helps me to bring all of these elements into one single tool and thing. Okay. Now, this is a more of a practical point of view or exercise or tool that I use for my spiritual, not only spiritual journey, but also my journey toward achieving goals and doing what I need to do to materialize and manifest my desires. Okay. So remember when I mentioned being mindful about what it is you want to do within a 30-day span. Okay. Instead of thinking about 5 years, 10 years from now, because a lot can happen and a lot of things will change over the course of 5 years. So to say you want something in 5 years can be a trap in itself because in 5 years, you could be a whole different person, right? You're getting into the understanding as to who you truly are. So, who you currently see yourself to be now versus who you will currently see yourself to be in 5 years can be a whole different person. So, your views and your wants, your desires will be different as well. So, let's just focus on 30 days, right? In a 30-day time frame. Now, you can definitely think about big goals, but keep it as general as possible. So that way you can pivot, you can move, you can change. But it will help you to ultimately get you to a place of how do we start and how do we move forward within this 30-day time frame. So 30 days. What I would like you to do is write out, draw out, or even buy a 30-day calendar. I use one of these big, huge calendars that I can put up on my wall. And it's a calendar just for 30 days, just for each month. And so what you want to do is at the beginning of each day, right after you have thought about what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to do, whether it be just curiosities, whether it be things you want to try, whether it be things you want to actually do. Say if it's fitness, you want to go and take a walk. Whether it's food, you want to maybe cook a meal a day. Whatever it is, spend 30 minutes with your family, right? With your kids, with your spouse, your partner, whatever it is. You want to identify something that you want to do every single day that is for you, that is based on your goals, based on what you desire and think is absolutely important. But often you're distracted from daily living and surviving that pulls you away from focusing on that thing. You want to write every single day of that month what that thing is, right? What that single sustainable action plan is. Okay, so let's just say you want to take a walk around the block because you want to build up your cardio, you want to get more fit. So you say, first thing in the morning, it may be in the morning, it may be in the evening, but you want that to be the first thing on the list of things that you got going on that day. Take a walk, right? Spend 30 minutes with my kids, right? Read a book, right? Read a few pages a day, whatever it is. Make sure that's first top of the list on each day of the week. If you have another thing, you want to put that on there. Make sure that they are small, sustainable, right? Tools or steps. Don't make it big. Make sure that you can do it easily without feeling it. You want to write that out every single day. Then, of course, you want to write down the things that you absolutely feel like you have to do, your responsibilities, right? Go to work. Maybe you have a meeting that day, on Tuesday. So you write that on Tuesday. Maybe you have a date, maybe you want to plan a date night with your spouse, your loved one, what have you. Make sure all of those things are written down on this board. It can be a board, it can be a journal, it can be a book. Personally, I like a big board that I can put up on my wall because I see it every single day. I can't avoid not seeing it. So it is going into my subconscious mind. Okay. So it is creating a new habit for me. But if I have it in a book, for me, unless I open the book, I won't see it. Okay. I won't receive it. Whether I do it or not, it just doesn't exist because I'm not looking at it. But if you have it on the board, you look at it, you see it. Okay. Whether you do it or not, you still see it. And it still sends a message in your mind. This is what I should be doing right now today. Or this is what I'm doing tomorrow or the next day or the next week. Okay. So by having this board, this allows you to accomplish so many things. First off, again, self-awareness. You have your goals. You know what they are connected to. You know what they lead to if you continue to be consistent with those things. Secondly, you're creating new patterns. So every time you look at this board, every time you do this thing, you're creating new patterns that align with what you desire. okay, which is again the opposite of the old patterns, which you want to avoid. But again, we're only focused on what we need to do. We're only focusing on what it is that you desire. Okay. Then, as you are looking at this board and you are planning out your week and you're just thinking about it, you are meditating on that, you are being mindful about that. So you are combining planning out your week, you are visualizing yourself doing those things throughout the week. You are visualizing those being easy tasks that eventually you will begin to grow, right? You will begin to do more of those things, get better at those things, get you closer to that goal. So the objective here is to use this simple one tool, single tool, to actually encompass all of these elements that I mentioned earlier. It's a very simple but extremely powerful tool. I recommend you do this because it would allow you then to really, really start rewiring your brain and sending you on a path of really carving out what it is you feel is important for you. Okay. And then we can get rid of all of the self sabotage, right? That has been in the way of your goals. And you can start actually aligning yourself, and moving forward toward creating that which you desire. But you have to figure out ways to bring all of these elements of spirituality, all these tools and techniques together in a way that will support you in living your truer self and living your most amazing and most beautiful life. You see, so it takes practice, it takes work, but more importantly, make it fun because it is. It's very fun when you acknowledge and see that that which you desire is not just a destination, but it allows you to connect with yourself on a deeper level by figuring out how to actually manifest and materialize that which you desire. Because that is where the true treasure lies. It isn't in the thing that you're creating, it's understanding and figuring out that you are the creator, understanding and figuring out that you have the power to create that. And once you figure that out, then you literally can create anything that you desire. And the universe, you understand, becomes a playground for you to actually create and live the life that you want to live. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, get access to this book and so many more books. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.